You're watching TelecomTV's exclusive video coverage of the Gen 15 event from Dallas. I'm joined now by Stuart McClure, who is the founder and CEO of Cylance. Stuart, thanks for joining us on TelecomTV.
Thank you, Guy. Yeah.
The title of a panel you were on this week at Gen 15 is a fascinating title. It's time for a genuine reality check on cybersecurity. Why do we need a reality check?
Well, I think because we're all in fantasy land, to be quite honest. We all think that nothing really happens. Maybe there isn't a big event, maybe there is. We get reminded sometimes with these big breaches and whatnot, but if it's not happening to you, you sort of think you're completely protected. You don't really have much to worry about, and so you kind of take your hands off the wheel a bit in terms of thinking about security, especially with, here at Gen 15 in terms of what they're doing, what we're doing in the cloud, and, open services and bringing it across to carriers. And it really does open up a huge footprint of attack for security.
So what's the real state of security within our telecoms networks today?
Well, let's say it's in its infancy. Yeah. So we've come a long way, that we absolutely have. But some of the places where we've seen a lot more progress are folks like financial institutions and insurance and things of that nature. Government perhaps a little bit more, but telecom is a little bit behind when it comes to thinking about and architecting security into the core fabric of the solutions that are coming on board, because quite honestly, their number one priority is just speed, right? Getting to market, getting high speed, high bandwidth, right? And available services, things of that nature. And sometimes security is just not built in from the beginning, and that's where it needs to be. Otherwise, if you try and bolt it on, it usually falls off.
I mean, we hear this with NFV, it's services decreasing the time to market. But as we move our architectures towards NFV and SDN, will that benefit security? Will that bring benefits?
It'll bring benefits, but it's basically more of the same for us in security because, at the end of the day, yes, these new technologies are new ways of managing, let's say, networks and applications and capabilities. But at the end of the day, the attacker goes after where the vital jewels are, and that usually is at the endpoint, whether it be a virtual endpoint or not. So in that sense, the attacks are always going to still go to the endpoint. And the endpoint could be server, it can be, a mobile device, it could be a laptop or desktop or just a virtual desktop, anything. But they all go to it because that's where the data is, that's where the information is, privacy is, and the value is. And so at the end of the day, unless you're thinking about it that way and actually preventing the attacks and thinking about security at the endpoint, even if it's virtual, you're going to be left in the cold.
It's got to be like a cost trade-off here, isn't it? Because the operators must be saying, it's going to cost us an awful lot to protect all our endpoints. Is that worth the risk?
It's always a balance, right? It's a trade-off between the cost and the risk. And, unfortunately, a lot of folks usually favor the cost rather than the risk until they get burned, until a major event or a breach of some sort happens. And then, it is tended to be taken a little bit more seriously, thought about more, executed on more, and implemented more. Yeah.
So what's your advice to network operators? What should they be doing to mitigate these risks?
Well, first and foremost, make sure that you have a security program, a plan in place effectively for not just kind of the operational side of deploying the technologies that you put into place, but actually requiring security in the products that you deploy and build as your platform. Because for them, security is usually an afterthought. And first off, building a program that thinks about it all the way through, but then also requiring it from the vendors that they purchase technologies from and platforms from is going to go a huge way. The other last bit actually is to really demand some standards around security. So, we talk about standards throughout telecom all the time, but we never talk about security standards. And so it's a big, big opportunity for us, because how can you possibly be secure when you actually aren't even communicating together in the same language? And that's a big Achilles heel, I think.
I was going to come on to the standards organisations there and to say, what more can they do? And should we be looking at a concerted global effort to either look at separate security standards or ensure that all our future telecom standards have security baked in from the offset?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's ripe opportunities to build great standards here. They're not going to be the silver bullet. It's not going to solve security, but it'll get us to the 80-20 rule, and get us a big way into preventing these kinds of attacks from the ground up, from zero day, literally. So it's those standards that we need to focus on, because there's nothing new. I mean, there's nothing really new. All these attacks, we've known about them for decades. We know how they work, we know who do them, and we know how to prevent them, period. End of story. It's just we don't have any standards or requirements to prevent them.
Let's hope the situation changes very soon. For now, Stuart, thank you very much for talking with TelecomTV.
Thank you so much, guys.